it's hard to imagine it's not affecting many components of any particular business. Where if you're dependent on a raw product from somewhere in the world, what is climate change? How is it affecting that raw product? Think about your supply chains, where your supplies, your products come from. How do they get to you? Is that supply chain safe? And also think about price volatility, which we're already seeing from a variety of factors. But one of them might be, again, transportation affected, or the loss of a raw product, and you have to go somewhere else and pay a lot more, or simply there isn't much available and the price goes up.
Why is it essential to incorporate climate change terminology in our daily dialogue? Are organizations interested in understanding the impacts and challenge of climate change, such as our food system, and working toward solutions? Today, my guest is Mike Hoffmann, Professor Emeritus at Cornell University, with vast experience and leadership in climate change. He's also the co-author of the book Our Changing Menu. This interesting book unpacks the increasingly complex relationship between food and climate change. Hello, Mike. How are you? I'm so happy to have you today as a guest. How is everything?
Well, Juan Carlos, I'm very glad to be here. I appreciate this opportunity, and given everything, I think I'm doing quite well. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you. I'm so happy to have you. Mike, organizations will be as central actors right now in the adaptation of climate change. Do you think, in your expertise, you have many of years working in this field, you think the organizations are interested in understanding the impacts of climate change and working toward solutions?
Yes, I think it's simple. It's a good business case
Mhm.
to be aware of climate change because it's hard to imagine it's not affecting many components of any particular business. Where if you're dependent on a raw product from somewhere in the world, what is climate change? How is it affecting that raw product? Think about your supply chains, where your supplies, your products come from. How do they get to you? Is that supply chain safe?
Mhm.
And also think about price volatility, which we're already seeing from a variety of factors. But one of them might be, again, transportation affected, or the loss of a raw product, and you have to go somewhere else and pay a lot more, or simply there isn't much available and the price goes up. So
Exactly.
again, I think it's, in a sense, it's an opportunity for organizations and businesses to be fully aware of climate change and what it means to their business. And frankly, if you're doing that, you may have a competitive edge over others who are not, because you as an organization will be prepared. And looking at the big picture, if we want to address climate change, the two key players are governments, but they are slow unless there's public pressure. And then there's corporations who can change swiftly and at scale. So I'm hopeful that we'll see more and more corporations or big organizations making these changes, frankly, for their own business sake. And
I
in their
reme-
facilities, if they also become more efficient, use energy more efficiently, etc., they can also save money.
Exactly. I remember when I took the course in Cornell with you, while I was working in my summary, if companies don't take actions, we lose money and customers. So, Mike, last week I read a very good ESG report from a mining company in Canada. And one of the things that I really like about this report was that this mining company was explaining and teaching to employees the concepts of course, the environment, ecosystems, water systems, greenhouse gases, etc. My question is why is it essential to incorporate the climate change terminology in our daily dialogue in the company's culture, planning, vision, mission, purpose? What is essential?
Well, climate change is a grand challenge.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, in the US, two-thirds of the adults rarely talk about it. Yet it's such a huge challenge that we face. Catherine Hayhoe, who is known as the sort of the leader in climate change communication, says this is the place to start, is to make these conversations more of a social norm than a rarity. And on the personal side, ask your children,
Exactly.
how are they doing? It's outside of the business realm, but eco anxiety is widespread, and I think it's important just to understand how they're feeling. I do that when I talk to students and give lectures, and a lot of times it's pretty emotional. So without these conversations,
Mhm.
there's no planning, there's no adaptation, there's no sort of willingness or eagerness to confront this challenge. I just think it's essential We need to start talking about it. And it also, again, when you talk about it, you may see opportunities for your organization. It's not just challenges.
Exactly, opportunities to innovate, to create, to involve more people, the stakeholders. All the stakeholders has to be involved. You know,
Or even empowering employees to find solutions
it's correct.
can really make a huge difference.
Yeah, the employees are the first advocate all the time in the in corporate and any kind of
Right.
organization.
Say it's also refer to it as finding one's greater purpose.
And also,
And
Mike, I think in about speaking about terminology, don't have to be uh, difficult terminology, or like the way that you explained during the course was very easy. I understand where were the difference between climate change and global warming. I didn't know that,
right,
and but I get that because the explanation. Sometimes I think companies, probably you agree, focus in very very difficult terms to people that the regular people who are walking right now or running, etc., don't know these words. I think if you are simple or like a storytelling way, would be more easier, right?
exactly.
Mike, with more severe droughts, some states and countries will be faced not only a scarcity, also they will increase the price of water. Now, water is no longer a topic for water experts. Companies in general must understand the value of this resource in their operations. What are your thoughts about that? What now nowadays, for example, COP26 included water in the topic. Why is that, and what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, water is essential to life. And because of climate change, where it falls, when it falls, or precipitation and how it falls is changing. So certain areas of the world are going to get drier if they're currently dry, and the wet areas will get wetter. So here again, the impacts are global, affecting everything. And a few years ago, I was contacted by a company that produced distilled spirits, which is a very, very water dependent business. And they wanted to know, wait a minute, we need to know more about this as to where to build our next facility because they needed water.
Mhm.
So again, back to organizations and companies, et cetera, and even I guess personal choices, water is critical. It goes from everything from the distilled spirit example to cooling nuclear power plants,
Exactly.
but it's changing because water temperatures in lakes and so on are increasing, and that makes it more challenging of all things to cool some of these power plants. So
Yeah.
it's right up there, sort of integrated totally with climate change for so many different reasons. And well, some people say, well, let's just drill more and tap our reservoirs underground, these aquifers. But unfortunately, they're also overdrawn already,
It's
so
correct.
we can't turn there.
It's
I think the
correct.
solution here is more efficient use of this valuable resource that we have, water.
Exactly. I think the right word that you mentioned is be aware of what's going on with this important natural resource. Also,
Right.
water is related to food supply and, of course, agriculture business. Let's talk about food supply and agriculture business, Mike. In your opinion, what are the main challenges they are facing right now?
Well, let's start with a plant. Let's say just any crop plant. Let's say a wheat plant.
Mhm.
It needs water, the right temperature, soil, and carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. But all of those things are changing. So the world of a crop plant, the world of a redwood is changing. And that's pretty significant because the outcomes of this are sometimes very subtle and sometimes dramatic. But what do we need? I think we need more resilient crops, varieties to address the droughts, the heat waves, etc., as much as possible. The saltwater intrusion, say in Vietnam,
Mhm.
some more salt tolerant rice. So that's probably the biggest one right there, is where we need to do more of that, more breeding for resilient crops. Another challenge is there's something called climate smart farming or climate smart agriculture, which focuses on soil health, which focuses on water management, either too much or not enough, and pest management. So we need more of that
Mm.
because, again, everything's changing, including new pests coming in.
Exactly.
Maybe another big challenge would be transportation, and that's not just of produce or raw product. It's also equipment and fertilizer. And for example, the Mississippi River, when there's too much water, the barges can't get under the bridges, and when there's not enough, they can't float.
Right.
So the implications there are huge. I want to wrap up with this. I would suggest a lack of appreciation of farmers and ranchers.
Yeah.
Um, We are so in this, most of us, not all in the US, can get what we want to eat most anytime, go to a grocery store. But we've kind of lost, we haven't kind of, we've lost touch with
Exactly.
where it comes from and the
Mhm.
person that's actually producing it. Whether, it could be a family in Western Africa growing cacao for our chocolate, and,
Right.
making all the $4 a day. So I think we really need to
Ex-
reinforce that connection and an appreciation for what they're doing.
yeah,
And together,
it's
we
correct.
can help confront climate change.
Exactly. Mike, speaking about agriculture business, local farms, what are your thoughts about how they will impact in our economy?
I get asked this question
Mhm.
often, should I buy local grown?
Right.
And yes, you're helping the local economy, you're helping local farmers, but also bear in mind that our food comes from everywhere. Depending where you are, if it's locally grown, it's going to be seasonally dependent. And believe it or not, some of these larger farms other elsewhere are in some cases more efficient. So when people ask, what about local grown? I said, yes, that's a good idea. Do as much as we can. But also bear in mind, it's more important what you eat than where it comes from.
I see.
Because, and my point there is to do as best you can in going in the direction of a plant based diet
Mhm.
and minimizing, or as we say, treating red meat, for example, as a delicacy,
Yeah.
not a staple.
Exactly. Exactly. Speaking about eating, I would like to say thank you because you sent me your book, Our Changing Menu. I am right now reading just a very interesting part: beef, big business, big scale. Climate change is impairing the entire food system, Mike. Would you mind sharing with my audience what inspired you to write this book, Our Changing Menu, and what outcomes you found with another authors?
Probably a little bit of frustration in not getting, not seeing people wake up to what we face.
Right.
And, we use those in the business of communicating about climate change, use all the impacts on the economy, what it means to the younger generation, what it might mean to human health. And all of those are very important,
Mhm.
but it's hard to compete with food. We encounter it multiple times a day. We love it, whether it's food or what they call some of those libations that many of us enjoy. That's all part of food, alcoholic beverages. And it
Okay.
just seemed, and when you're communicating about climate change, it has to be relevant to people's lives, and it's hard to beat food.
Mhm.
We all eat. So I think that was the inspiration. Is hey, and you may have heard me say this, but melting glaciers are bad enough, but the loss of coffee is downright terrifying. And that now I think that gets people's attention. So where this is all going and outcomes, it seems to be growing in a
Mhm.
very good way. People are intrigued and really like the idea of using food to tell the climate change story. I'm getting, invited to do more speaking engagements. We've had a great experience so far with the Culinary Institute of America.
Yeah.
We're going down to speak to their students in June. So there's a lot of, I would say, positive developments
That's good.
around using food to tell the climate change story.
And let me tell you, this book is very easy to read, with
Yes.
graphics, some pictures, very conceptual for, I would say, like any kind of ages, like very easy to read. Mike, anything that you would like to add, maybe about this book itself, or maybe about the course Climate Change Leadership in Cornell? Please feel free in these final thoughts if you want to share with the audience.
Well, maybe the whole idea of using food to tell the climate change story. I mean, the IPCC report that came out on Monday is pretty dire and says we have the technological solutions. We just need the will.
Hmm.
We need to get people to support this. And that goes back to using food as a means of communication and trying to wake them up. I refer to it as a potential great awakening, or even bringing about social change like we need, diets, food waste, etc. Talking about it, using food as a means to accomplish those goals. So I'm pretty pleased about this. And then you referred to the Cornell course, Climate Change Leadership. There also, it's another opportunity to help people understand what's happening
Hmm.
and find the solutions and opportunities. And I think many students are surprised at how climate change is just about affecting everything.
Everything.
And we spend a little time on things like perfumes and cosmetics and so on. So it's out there, and I think that's also a good point. That course is offered frequently, so if anybody's interested, and I'm glad you took it and many others are taking it. So it's a powerful experience in getting introduced to this topic and what it might mean to you personally as well as your organization.
Exactly. For me, it was a great opportunity to learn the concept that I was struggling to understand some concepts. And then when I took the course in Cornell, I feel more confident to talk about it, the food system, the supply chain involved in in the food system, the waste food, etc. Mike, where people can contact you? Oh,
I honestly, I could share an email address
yeah,
on
please feel
if
free.
that's okay. Okay, it's mph,
Hmm.
like miles per hour,
Okay.
3 at cornell.edu. I'm happy to talk to anybody about this.
The book is also available on Amazon. Our changing menu. If you
Yes.
guys, our listeners, want to know more about the impact of climate change and food, please check our changing menu. Mike, I would like to say thank you for your time.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to help spread the word.
Exactly. Now, this is most important, create awareness and educate some people. Mike, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I am Juan Carlos Giraldo from Boston, United States. Thank you so much to everyone.